Hey, Story Clatter listeners. If you're hooked on the surprising twists and turns of science in our stories, you're going to love Curiosity Weekly from Discovery. Science and tech are moving fast, new discoveries are happening every single week. But don't worry, Curiosity Weekly is here to help make sense of it all. Each week, they dive into the biggest questions and ideas shaping our world with expert guests who break it down in a way that actually makes sense. You want to know why you can't stop scrolling on TikTok? Neuroscientists are figuring out exactly which brain chemicals are keeping you hooked. Or how about this? Clean beauty products and viral makeup dupes? They wouldn't exist without cosmetic chemistry. Oh, and get this. Planes are now flying from Florida to England on recycled plastic jet fuel. Wild, right? Curiosity Weekly covers everything from AI decoding ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs to robots that can actually feel pain. Trust me, if you're curious about the world, and I know you are, this is the podcast for you. Listen to Curiosity Weekly wherever you get your podcasts.
A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
I
it
felt
felt
right.
right.
But I was so
And I just thought, well,
I had figured it out
it was that golden moment.
because science was on my side.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Story Clatter, where true personal stories about science help us to discover how weird and wonderful it is to exist in this world and be a human. I'm your host, Misha Gajewski, and in today's episode, our storytellers are sharing their deepest secrets. And I can't wait for y'all to be in on the secrets too, because I'm a gossip-loving kind of gal. Also, because I'm terrible at keeping secrets, so I literally can't keep these to myself for a moment longer. Anyway, our first story is from evolutionary biology PhD student Pauline Owusu-Ansah. Her story was recorded in Montreal, Quebec at the 3rd Joint Congress on Evolutionary Biology meeting in the Palais de Congrès. And what I love most about Pauline's story is how it's such an endearing example and reminder of how the things we feel ashamed of or what secrets we guard close to our chest are very much dependent on societal and cultural norms. Here's Pauline.
so I am wandering through the Kakum National Park. It is located in Ghana, West Africa. And as I go down on the sandy rocks, my height hits something. So I'm actually on this trip with my friends. It's our final trip as junior high school. So in Ghana, junior high school students are students who are being prepared to enter senior high school. So like this is our final trip, and I plan to make good use of everything. I have my camera in hand, taking all the pictures I can, because I need to go back and then show them to my parents. So of course, I'm a finalist and I'm going to senior high school. And little did I know that something was about to happen that would change the course of my life, and that would really cause me to take a different career path. As I stroll along these sandy rocks, my heart hit something, and I saw two lizards. Now, we are all scientists, right? So you know lizards, the way they dance around, chasing each other, circular round motion. So it's like an ever-ending choreographed dance. Now, there's something about their angular folds, the fiery oranges of their scales. It's like a deep mixture of blue and orange. It's so nice. And as at that very moment, everything just flashes off. The laughter of my friends, I can't even hear anything. It just disappears. Even the hum of the insects, and of course, the echoing sounds of these birds. All I can focus on is these two lizards that are darting around. Their skin, it glistens with the sunlight, and I just think about it, and I'm like, this is so cool. On our ride back home, I'm seated right beside my best friend. She's called Georgia. Georgia is a very loud person. We've been friends. As at that time, we had been friends for just 5 years. And she's so loud and loyal. So I tell her, Georgia, don't you think studying lizards will be the best thing as adults? Georgia looks at me like this. And she's like, yo, who the hell studies lizards? Well, I can't even blame her because in my country, Ghana, why would you even study lizards? See, we have lots of problems that Africans haven't even solved. And now this is me going to study lizards. Everyone on the bus just laughs at me. But there's something that keeps coming into my mind. I'm like, there's something about this. It's so fascinating. Maybe I just have to forget about it because in my country, Ghana, a serious science student like myself can't just walk to my parents, a 13-year-old, telling them that, hey, mom, dad, I want to become, should I call it a lizardist? I want to study lizards. I can't. I dare not. So eventually, I start my senior high school education. I'm studying science. I'm reading biology, physics, chemistry, trying to read the molecular oh God, it was so difficult, not to talk of organic chemistry. So I still do something. Even during the lunch breaks, I find a way to sneak into the library and then read the journals because in my country, only a few schools have these libraries. So when you go there, you're expected to just study all the big chemistry, the physics and all of that. And this is me going through all the journals, reading about reptiles, lizards, and all of that. So I later find out that these lizards are known as the agama lizards. And I still hide it. So I complete my high school and I have to select a program. So in Ghana, if you decide to read a very serious program or pursue a career, as a science student, you're either considered to be or you're expected to read medicine or engineering. Any other profession is seen as unserious. So I have to find a way to tell my mom that, I'm going to be an engineer. So I tell her that, Mommy, I want to pursue environmental science. And then she's like, what's that? And I told her that, okay, Mommy, with environmental science, I can come out and later go to graduate school to pursue environmental engineering. And she's like, yeah, that's my daughter. Wow. So I get to final year. I find a way to hide my final year thesis project from them because I do something around conservation biology. And after school, I am so honored to be posted to an export research company where I work as an environmental scientist. So I am the first daughter that makes my parents proud. Because even when she goes around her friends and they ask her, what's your daughter reading? She's like, oh, my daughter, she's reading, something, but it's engineering. So she's going to be an environmental engineer. And they're like, wow, that's so cool. So one time I am walking back home with Georgia. We need to catch the bus. And then my friend again, Georgia, if you remember, the one who told me who the hell studies lizards, she's now my co-worker. Georgia went to school to study art, so she's now a sustainability officer and we all work in the same company. So then she tells me, girl, I realized that you've still been reading things about lizards. I'm like, wow. How did you know? Because I've been hiding this from people. And she's like, you know what? We all share the same laptop at work in Ghana. Privacy is nothing. It is here that you guys take it seriously. We don't care. I can just walk into my friend's home and then go to her room, check everything. Africa for you. So she tells me that, Pauline, you know what? I think you love this. Why don't you just pursue it? And that's the very first time I've seen Georgia be serious. So she tells me that, you know what? There's nothing you can do. Just pursue it because how long are you going to keep hiding this? And I told her that, how am I going to tell my parents? And she told me, girl, see, forget, you're 20 years. If you tell them, they'll have nothing to do. I mean, just hide it for now. And then later when they find out, there's nothing they can do. Mind you, a 20-year-old graduate still living with their parents. Because we, in Africa again, we do not really care. You live with your parents somewhere. So I go home and I start thinking about what Georgia said. This time it's not as shameful as she said in the bus. This time it's more nerve-wracking. And I told myself that I really need to pursue this. Now I need to have an idea. So I decide to stay up very late in the night, use my daddy's Wi-Fi and then the PC to go through graduate school options. Of course, there's no way I'm going to study conservation biology in Ghana. I dare not. So I look up schools here in the US and I start it. Finally, in 3 months' time, after putting in all the applications, the applications come out, the decisions are out, and I get into Miami University. I'm so happy. Okay. Wow. Thank you. That really helped me. I'm so happy. But then again, the thought of having to tell my parents that their first daughter is going to read conservation biology, pursue a PhD in that, how else am I going to tell them? So the night before I tell them, I'm just in my room walking up and down, rehearsing the words how I'm going to stand in front of my daddy. Because in Africa we are afraid of our daddies. So how am I going to stand in front of him and tell him that, Daddy, I am going to read conservation biology? No, I have to make it more, Daddy, I'm going to read conservation biology. So that morning, the walk from my room to my parents' room is the longest walk of my life. Because, their room is just close to mine. But see, my legs were literally shaking. My palms were clammy. I could literally feel my heart beating. And I finally get to their door. I close my eyes. And I still think, am I really going to be able to tell them this? How are they going to take it? And then finally, I walk in. Now I see my daddy and my mommy on their bed. And even the steps from that door to their bed was the longest walk of my life. So I finally get there and I'm like, Mom, Dad. They're like, yay, how is our engineer doing? I'm like, I'm fine, Mommy. Mom, there's something that I need to tell you. My mom's like, yeah, tell me. Why? I just got admitted. And she's like, yay, environmental engineer, finally. I'm like, no, Mom. It's something conservation biology. Conservation what? Yeah, conservation biology. What's that? Let me give you the African answer. What is that? Conservation biology. Yes, Mommy, I want to study lizards. My dad just looks at me like this, up, down, and then he just walks off. I could see how disappointed he was. He was so angry and annoyed at me that he didn't even get close to me. He just shuts the door behind me, and I could feel my stomach churning with nervousness. So my mom is left with my mom and I in the room, and she looks at me in disbelief. She also walks off. So right now, I've literally just sat my parents out of their own room, and I'm the only one in the room. See, the next couple of days, the following 3 days were the worst of my life. Everything had just become so quiet. Our breakfasts were now served in the most quietest cave. The once loud African home had become the quietest one. I couldn't even hear the rhythmic sounds of my daddy's guitar. My siblings were not even happy. I don't know, they were very young, but they could feel that heat and tension in the house. So sometimes in the night, I'll just look myself in the mirror and I will tell myself, is this even worth it? Losing your family's love over some lizards? Is it really worth it? It was so sad. Imagine a 20-year-old facing the choice of either choosing your family's love or choosing what you really want to do. Finally, the fourth day comes. Then I hear my door open. See, the way I just walked up to the door, that was my dad. Because for the past 3 days, no one was talking to me. Our lunches were served quiet. Everyone would just see me and then pass off. I could see my mom trying so hard. Mothers have this way of trying to calm the nerves of their partners, but it wasn't working. So my father finally walks in, and God, my heart was beating because what exactly was he going to tell me? Was he going to ask me to get out of his house? I was broke. How else was I going to rent an apartment? So I just get up and I face him. Then my mom also walks in. See, their faces are so disappointing. My mom is trying hard to smile, but the smile is not even coming. So I'm like, Dad. And then he's like, keep quiet. He said, keep quiet. Okay, Dad. Pauline, he finally lets off the words. You know we love you. And we've worked our way so hard to put you through school. We've had just these menial jobs to bring you up, just so we could also have the bragging rights to boast to our friends that we were the parents of medical doctors or engineers. But you've decided to pursue this, lizard course or whatever you call it, and after thinking it through, there's nothing we can do. So we are just going to tell you that we love you so much and congratulations on your admission. Imagine having heard the word congratulations 4 days after being admitted. Yeah, it was sad, but at that very moment, it was the best words. And then he looks at me, opens his arm, and he hugs me. If you're conversant or if there's any African here, you know how hard it is for an African dad to hug you. Because in Africa, dads are seen to be that fiery. You know, they'll come and look at you like this. It's only mothers who hug you. So that day when my daddy hugged me, his arms were so strong, but for some reason, they had become very soft. So he hugged me so tight, and my mom also joined in. And as at that moment, everything just fades off. I could feel the laugh. I could feel that moment of honesty. And finally, my mom also joins in. My siblings, I have 3 siblings, knowing and seeing how my dad and my mom has finally got close to me and then talking, they also rush in and then hug me. You know, today, my mom, anytime she calls me, she's the happiest. You should see the way she explains to her friends that her daughter is studying lizards. She is the happiest. And my friend Georgia, she calls me and she's like, "Hey, lizardist, how you doing?" I love them so much. This is my story. Thank you.
Huh, who would have thought liking lizards was such a big deal? Anyway, that was Pauline. To find out more about her, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Being a storyteller on stage is just one way to make Story Clatter happen. And right now, we're on the lookout for compelling personal stories for 2 upcoming podcast series. We're looking for stories about how climate change intersects with your personal journey in the urban world. Like, have you experienced extreme weather in your city, played a part in an urban sustainability project, or found unexpected connections between city living and the natural world? If so, tell us about it. We're also looking for stories about navigating relationships with people whose beliefs about science differ from your own. Whether it's climate change, vaccines, evolution, or other controversial scientific topics, we're looking for stories that explore the challenges, humor, and humanity of these conversations. There are more details on our website, storyclatter.org, but if you think you have a story that fits these themes, please pitch us. But if sharing a story in front of an audience isn't your jam, maybe becoming a Story Clatter donor is more up your alley. Story Clatter donors play a vital role in our ability to bring you this podcast. We're in this together. Story Clatter is one big experiment that's designed to connect us around our love of discovery, curiosity, and the natural world. If you believe in the power these stories have and this mission, please donate to the Story Clatter at storyclatter.org/donate. The most popular level is $10 a month, and you can make your tax-deductible donation at storyclatter.org/donate. But really, any level makes a difference, and we're so grateful to everyone who supports Story Clatter.
Welcome to Nada Yada Island.
Next on Metro's Nada Yada Island podcast.
I almost fainted when the 4 new bombshells arrived. 4 free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G phones at Metro.
No way.
And finding out the 4th line is free. Oh, things got heated.
That's wild. Join Metro and get 4 free Samsung 5G phones. Only at Metro.
Plus tax. Bring 4 numbers and an ID and sign up for any Metro Flex plan. Not available currently at T-Mobile or have been with Metro in the past 180 days.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. During tax season, your personal info travels to a lot of places. Between payroll, your tax consultant, and the IRS. If your W-2 gets exposed, that's just the ticket for identity thieves. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Our next story is from physicist/engineer, comedian, and Story Clatter producer Saad Sarwana. His story was recorded in Salt Lake City, Utah at the 2024 Applied Superconductivity Elevate Conference. His story sounds like the makings of a Hollywood comedy. It's all about Saad leading a secret double life of comedian and scientist. And as you would imagine, it's hilarious. I can't wait for you to hear this story. Here's Saad.
So I was finishing up graduate school, and I needed to find a job. And after sending out hundreds of resumes, I finally heard back from a company I'd applied to. So I was all scheduled for my interview. I'd read all the online help guides about how to answer questions like, "What's your biggest weakness?" And I was all set to interview. I'll date myself, I got directions using a website you might have used when you were younger. It's called MapQuest. So I drove in. As I'm driving in, the area is looking familiar. Have I been here before? So I walked in, I checked in at the front desk, and the receptionist asked me to wait on the couch outside. And I look at my email, and I'm going through what I'm supposed to do today. I'm scheduled to interview with two people, the hiring manager and one of their senior engineers. So the hiring manager walks in, and as soon as he sees me, his face changes, and he has a huge grin on his face. He's like, "Aren't you the comedian who zinged me a couple of weeks ago?" Let me explain. While in graduate school, I'd started doing stand-up comedy as a hobby. And it had to be a hobby because I was on an F1 student visa, and you're not actually allowed to work in the US. And if I got paid, I'd actually be breaking the law and be taking jobs away from real Americans. So I'd been doing comedy as a hobby, and apparently this manager had been on one of my shows, and our interaction might have involved some playful banter with some few insults thrown in. So he takes me over to his office, and he starts, and I'm hoping for a regular interview because I'm brushing off the comedian comments that he'd made, but it doesn't go well because he keeps on bringing up the show and how I'd insulted him, and he wants his revenge. And I'm like trying to talk to him about my resume, but he keeps on bringing it up. It's like a complete train wreck. I'm sinking lower and lower in my chair, but I'm thinking to myself, I can recover. He's not the technical guy. I still have an interview with the senior engineer. I can make this happen. So after he's done, he walks me over to the senior engineer. I think his name was John or Jim or something. And his introduction should have been, "Hey, John, this is Saad. He's going to be interviewing for the position of test engineer." But that's not what it was. It was like, "Hey, John, you know how you regularly interview engineers? Today you get to interview a comedian." Being introduced as a comedian completely puts a damper on the whole interview. This guy starts off by telling me some not safe for work jokes. He then continues to tell me ideas for bits I should use in my stand-up. And while I'm trying to tell him about all my test skills as an engineer, "Hey, I can make automated measurements, I know how to use LabVIEW," all he's talking about is his favorite comedians and his favorite bits. I walk out of that interview and I'm like, this has gone badly, but I know what I'm supposed to do. All the help guides say I'm supposed to write a thank you note and tell them how much I enjoyed myself and how much I want to work there. So I sent off those emails. I never hear back. But I look at the positive, because that's what my parents taught me. Look at the positive. I'd finally been recognized as a comedian. Maybe I shouldn't give up on this comedy thing. I just need to keep my walls separate so that they don't interfere. I eventually get a job in superconducting electronics, and I make sure I don't tell my colleagues that I do stand-up because that whole interview thing is still at the back of my mind. It's not like I'm hiding it, but I just don't want to publicize it, right? While doing stand-up, I meet a lot of other professionals like lawyers, bankers who also do stand-up, but what they do is they use stage names. And I'm like, should I use a stage name? People already know me by my name, so I keep my name both for my IEEE membership and for my page on MySpace. The way I like to explain it is, this is how my life was. I was in a hybrid superposition of a physicist and a comedian, but when I was interacting with people, I always collapsed to one state. When I was with my graduate student friends and colleagues, I'd be like the physicist, and when I'd be my comedian friends, I'd be a comedian. And I continued to do this for many years until the 2014 Applied Superconductivity Conference. And the chairman of the conference, who's sitting right there, asked me to give a little keynote, a little 5-minute presentation before the keynote's presentation at the banquet dinner. Now, for the comedian in me, this was too great an opportunity to be overlooked. Right? This was 2,000 people. I usually was used to performing for hundreds of people. This was 2,000 of my peers. And this was an opportunity for me to prove that it was possible to be both a physicist and a comedian. So I accepted this offer, and I went into the conference. I was supposed to give 2 presentations at the conference. On Wednesday, there was a banquet dinner night, and I was supposed to perform at the banquet dinner for all 2,000 people at the conference. And on Thursday, I had my talk in Hall B, room 202, on an RSF U-switch matrix for a multiband analog to digital converter. And that room was, seats about 150, 200 people, but we all know it's only about 20% full, right? We know all these things because there are 20 other parallel sessions going on. So it was fine. I knew that. So on Wednesday night, I go on. It's a packed room. I'm really nervous. But since it's a superconducting crowd, I try to do a whole bit using PowerPoint, which is the tool of a scientist, about how cold the crowd is. And it's available on YouTube for those of you who want to watch. But I do jokes like, this crowd is so cold, it feels like a Bose-Einstein condensate. Right? And I get roaring laughter. It goes much better than I ever anticipated. I'm feeling on top of the world. So when on Thursday I get to my room to present my research talk, the room is packed. People have come to watch the jokes. So that's what I give them. I throw in a little jokes in my presentation, and it took 15 years, but I finally achieved physicist, comedian, quantum entanglement. Thank you.
That was Saad. If you'd like to learn more about him or find out when you can catch him as the host of our Phoenix, Arizona Story Clatter show, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Our website is just one way to connect with Story Clatter, but there are so many other ways, and we hope you'll use them all. You can always follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Head to storyclatter.org to become a financial supporter, or if you want to come to one of our shows, start your own Story Clatter show in your community, or even learn how to tell your own science story, you can learn all about that on our website too. This podcast is produced by me, Misha Gajewski, along with Jen Chen, Nikisha Roberts-Washington, and Aaron Barker, Executive Director and co-founder of the Story Clatter. The stories featured in today's episode were produced by Niti Jen, Kayla Glenn, and me, Misha Gajewski. Special thanks goes out to Story Clatter's board and team. Our theme music is by Ghost, and next week, I'll be back with some romantic stories for Valentine's Day. Join me for stories about using science to find love. They're so good. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.